And welcome to Hannity. And tonight we are broadcasting in beautiful Acworth, Georgia. Welcome, Georgia. Thank you for being here. Wow. In mere moments, we will be joined by Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker, along with Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Tim Scott for an exclusive Hannity town hall. We are a mere 22 days away from a tipping point election for the direction of this country. Democrats, they are pouring tens and tens of millions of dollars and resources into this state and many others in what is a desperate attempt to defeat, smear, slander Herschel Walker. Last night, they attempted to ambush Herschel Walker at a fake debate that was organized by a group of individuals who, quote, donated thousands of dollars to Democrats, including Joe Biden, Georgia Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff, and even Raphael Warnock, who was in the debate. The Atlanta Press Club director, who is in charge of the sham debate, donated to both Joe Biden and Arizona Democrat Mark Kelly. Now, another member of the press club donated thousands to Raphael Warnock. Why would Herschel ever show up in an environment like that? And yet another member donated $500 to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. And yet another member of the Atlanta Press Club donated $500 to Warnock. So after Herschel Walker refused to play along, they put an empty podium to try and shame him for not attending their fake debate. Well, we will be the antidote to that tonight. Much of the media in Atlanta and nationwide, they are petulant, radical, extreme, left-wing bullies. They don't tell the truth. They despise Herschel Walker. They despise every conservative. They don't like the fact that he's a conservative. He thinks for himself, and he has long rejected the radical socialist beliefs of this new Green New Deal Socialist Democratic Party. Instead, he supports what? Low taxes. Do we need energy independence? Energy independence. Do we need law and order? We need law and order. Do we need a secure border? Do we need peace through strength? How about schools that are not woke, that teach reading, writing, math, science, history? Right? Not woke propaganda. Now, despite this very pragmatic agenda, Democrats, the mob, and the media like the AJC and others, they would like the people in Georgia to believe, and the people around the country to believe, that Herschel Walker is not worthy of being a U.S. senator. But in Friday night's debate, Herschel Walker proved them all wrong, and he won that debate. Here are some highlights.
He told me Black Lives Matter. And if you think about it, Senator, in Atlanta, Georgia, there's more black baby that is aborted than anything. So if Black Lives Matter, why are you not protecting those babies? And instead of aborting those babies, why are you not baptizing those babies? To hear Senator Warnock talks about supporting law enforcement is sad, because he's called them names. And because of the name calling he's done, the morale is down, recruitment is down, only because of what he's done. He's empowered criminals to think they're better than the police. What I would do is hold people accountable, which is Senator Warnock not doing. Believing in no cash bail, no accountability, that is a problem. People must be accountable for their action. And the truth lies with Senator Warnock, because he said he was going to Washington to represent Georgia. He went to Washington to represent Joe Biden.
Mr. Walker, former President Trump is also considering a run for the White House in 2024. If you can give me a simple yes or no answer, and we'll give you time to explain as well. Would you support a Trump 2024 run?
Yes, I would.
Now, if you watch the debate, how many of you noticed that Raphael Warnock wouldn't answer a question? He wouldn't answer the question about would he support Joe Biden. Wanted no part of that question at all. Wouldn't answer a lot of questions. Do you have any exceptions on abortion? He wouldn't answer. Herschel Walker is a constitutional conservative, but if elected, he could very well be the 51st Republican vote in the U.S. Senate. In other words, for all of you around the country, understand this, Herschel Walker could be the last line of defense against Biden's radical, leftist, new Green Deal, socialist, horrible agenda that is especially impacting the poor, the middle class, and people on fixed incomes in this country. That's why Democrats are all in for a radical candidate with a lot of baggage. Take a look.
America, nobody can serve God and the military. No matter what happens next month, more than a third of the nation that would go along with this is reason to be afraid. America needs to repent for its worship of whiteness on full display.
We remember Fidel Castro, whose legacy is complex. Don't let anybody tell you a simple story. Life usually isn't very simple. His legacy is complex, kind of like America's legacy is complex.
Warnock praising Castro. He also lavished praise on anti-American preacher, the one that said GD America, Reverend Jeremiah Wright. And by the way, even noted anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan, he praised on him as well. He compared police to thugs and gangsters. He supports eliminating all cash bail. As a senator, he voted to uphold Biden's oil and gas bans. He has vowed to end all new fossil fuel leases and to go to, quote, renewable energies, whatever that is. It is not really clear that Warnock supports any restrictions on abortion at all. He would not answer that question in the debate on Friday, including up to the moment of birth. But of course, the media, the mob, they won't ask him about those extreme positions. Meanwhile, as a pastor, Warnock's character has been called into question many times. In 2002, as a minister in West Baltimore, Warnock was arrested, literally arrested, for obstructing a police investigation into a child abuse cases, multiple cases, at his church camp. And according to the Baltimore Sun, he blocked the police from interviewing camp counselors that were key to the case. And ultimately, Warnock himself was not convicted of any crime, but 5 cases of child abuse at his camp were brought against one of his camp directors, who Warnock was clearly trying to protect. More recently, in 2020, Warnock was accused of running over his wife with a car during a domestic dispute. Take a look at this.
And he just starts backing the car up. And he wasn't going fast. Like, I'm not bleeding, but I just can't believe he would run me over.
So you think it was intentional that he ran your foot over?
I just don't think he cares. I think, obviously, I was standing here, the door is open, and I'm leaning into the car. How can you drive the car when I'm leaning into it? He knew it was a risk, and he doesn't care. He just cares about his own stuff.
Okay.
He's got a flight to catch, and that's all that matters. This man's running for United States Senate, and all he cares about right now is his reputation. I've tried to keep the way that he acts under wraps for a long time, and today he crossed the line. Like, I had to draw the line today. I've had enough of him thinking he can do whatever he wants because of who he is and treat me any kind of way, and I just keep taking it and being quiet for his reputation's sake, and I've had it.
Now, we must ask, why was Warnock not arrested? And now, by the way, why is nobody in the Democratic Party, you know, where are all the Believe All Women caucus? Where are those Democrats openly disturbed by those allegations you just heard? And get this, even more recently this year, Warnock was ordered by a Superior Court judge to attend mediation after he was accused of neglecting his own children and failing to pay child care expenses, despite amassing a net worth of nearly $1 million. Warnock now draws 2 incomes. Not only is Warnock a full-time U.S. senator, but he also earns a large 6-figure paycheck as the senior pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church. The church was also generously providing Warnock with a $7,400 monthly housing allowance. But here's the kicker. According to a bombshell new report from the Washington Free Beacon, eviction notices have been sent to a dozen residents for past due rent at an investment property owned by Warnock's, quote, church. They even attempted to evict one resident who owed just $28. Now, tonight, Herschel Walker has offered to cover any and all rent for anybody that is facing eviction at the building that is owned by Raphael Warnock's church. But keep in mind, Warnock's church had nearly $1.2 million with cash on hand at the end of 2021. So if you want to see an obvious example of greed and corruption Warnock says that he's against, then look no further than the senior pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, who has been laughing all the way to the bank, all while his own policies hurt his own constituents. Inflation, 41-year high because of the bills that he passed. Gas prices more than double what we were paying under President Trump, in many states even more, because of the energy restrictions that people like Raphael Warnock support. And soon, an army of 87,000 IRS agents. They will be descending on Georgia's small businesses because of legislation that Warnock enthusiastically supported. Here's the deal. In 22 days, if you want to hold Biden accountable, if you want to turn our economy around, and you want a reliable 51st conservative vote in the U.S. Senate, you have to go to the polls. You have the power. Make no mistake. This race is incredibly close. A brand new, just for the show, Insider Advantage poll now have Warnock and Walker neck and neck within the margin of error. It's a 2-point race. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.